All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey folks, hey, this is Keith. Welcome to today's training. Appreciate you coming on board. Some of you guys, it's kind of a little bit of last minute because we didn't get an email sent out from Perry's side because things are a little bit crazy over there. But I know some of you folks got an email from me, so I appreciate coming on. I've got guys. Um, as far as today's call, I'm super excited because uh, Russell Henneberry is the editorial director of Digital Marketer, which is Ryan Deiss's kind of main hub company where they teach internet marketing training and digital traffic and conversion. Really, they put on probably the biggest event in the industry, Traffic and Conversion Summit. And I was originally kind of introduced to Russ. Originally, I guess it was when I did an article, right, for Crazy Egg. That's kind of how we first met, sort of online. You,
Well, I think
when,
Adam Kreitman, he's a Perry, Planet Perry guy. He introduced me to you, and then you and I connected out at Traffic and Conversion Summit, and
yep, yeah,
did
that's
stuff.
kind of what I meant. So you guys knew each other, and I connected for doing an article for Crazy Egg for Adam, and then Adam, that's right, and then he told me that you okay, and then he introduced you to me, and then basically through online, and then we met in person back in January at the
Yeah.
event, and so kind of all together. But basically, uh, before this, you were the content manager for what Salesforce.com and Crazy Egg. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've done content strategy, and for those would be the companies that anybody would have heard of is Neil Patel's Crazy Egg, and of course Salesforce.com is huge, and everybody knows them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so basically, I was on a webinar that they did for some of their members not too long ago that Russ did, and it was just incredible content. Because for me, the reason I reached out to him and asked him if he wouldn't mind coming on and doing a training for you guys is because this is a huge push for me. Anybody that's following me for a while knows that whenever I talk about Facebook ads, I always put in if there's any way that you can create high value content, create a blog post and use Facebook to amplify that blog post, and then have really good systems in place to move people into your sales funnel, whether it's retargeting or strong calls to action on your website or whatever it is. But I've always been preaching this for two and a half years, my quote unquote promoted post retargeting loop, where you should be creating value content, not, where people don't have to opt in to actually consume it, a blog. And then what you're doing is you're not only warming up your audience, but you're also building a longer term kind of foundation. And so for me, this has been a huge thing for me. My website just got redesigned, and it's in like the last 10% of the coding phase right now. So I'm relaunching my blog myself, and I'm looking for expert content writers that want to create content for us that we're going to be amplifying with Facebook, those types of things. This is a huge push for me. I wanted to get to make it even a bigger push earlier in the year. Just things got crazy with all the trainings we were doing in the book and everything. But so this is as much for me as it is for you folks out there. So um, I think this is a big deal. I mean, digital marketer, like I said, is one of the biggest players in the digital marketing space. But I mean, I've been following Ryan Deiss for a long time, and they've always had a blog, but they've never really had traffic consistently to their blog. And I don't know, Russ, you can maybe touch on this a little bit more, but I mean, I've noticed a massive change. I mean, these you guys are doing incredible things over there now with the blog, and it's just a whole part of your hemisphere of stuff. And in my opinion, in a lot of ways, it's the way to create the longest term, biggest evangelists that will, buy your stuff a lot faster. So sorry about the long intro, but I just wanted to kind of,
I
I'm
appreciate
excited,
it,
so
man.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate that, man.
so basically what we'll do today quick is he's just going to talk about this kind of how to get expert writers for your blog and a little bit of stuff that some of the tactics that you've used, and I'll let you just kind of take over. And then if you got a question, just feel free to shoot a question in the chat box. If it's kind of relevant at the time, then I'll interrupt him and um, and hop on the question. If otherwise, we'll hit questions at the end, and we'll kind of get right into it. So cool.
Very cool, man.
All
Thank
right.
you for that great introduction. And Yeah, I mean, why should you listen to me about this stuff? I've been blogging for a long time, and I've blogged for some created content strategy um, for companies like Crazy Egg, Salesforce.com, and now Digital Marketer. But that's not it. I've done a lot of content strategy for smaller businesses. I've been in just about any vertical you can think of, creating content strategy. I've created thousands of pieces of content for the web myself, both as an editor and as a writer. And I know how to drive traffic using content and how to convert that traffic into sales, which is really where I'd like to start out today when we talk about. If you apologize, I've got 3 monitors that I use when I work, which I love. If you're not using dual monitors, that might be the best thing you'll take away from this this meeting. Get another monitor because it rules. Okay, I have 3 monitors, and so I don't have this thing in full presentation mode, so that because it goes wonky on me when I go into full presentation mode. But I wanted to start out. We're going to talk about how to find people to create content for your site, for your blog. And I wanted to start out with why. Why are we doing this? And it kind of goes back to how I feel about content creation in general. So I wanted to start out by, let's see if I can switch slides. You see my screen all right, buddy?
Yeah, and I know how it is. Sometimes I do the same thing with GoToWebinar. Sometimes it's just easier to keep it out of presentation mode because of all the
well, yeah, because I'm going to be switching to the web a couple times here. So what I want you to notice is that the biggest blogs, the ones that make money, the ones that generate sales, most of the time are not single author blogs. All right, they are media properties. They are publishing companies, and they just happen to be publishing digitally on the web. They're not hobby blogs about your family and things like that. Now, there's nothing wrong with those, and I have a personal blog myself, and I write things on there that I just feel like writing about. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're trying to build a blog that generates sales, if you're trying to build a blog that really starts to get traction with traffic through search, through social, and things like that, you really need to start thinking stop calling it a blog and start thinking about it as a media publisher. And what I want you to notice is that when you start comparing yourself to a media publisher, what you'll realize is that the people that own these media publishing companies do not do most of the content creation on these sites. You don't see Steve Forbes. You don't see Steve Forbes in Forbes magazine. You don't see Oprah Winfrey writing copy for Oprah magazine, or what these people have become famous for is creating media companies by aggregating lots and lots of experts together. And that's kind of what Keith is doing by having me on this webinar today. He's went out and grabbed another expert, somebody that knows something about blogging, and having me talk about it for the benefit of his audience, because Keith understands that that he doesn't know everything about digital marketing, and that he can bring in other experts. Just a month ago, we had Keith on to talk about Facebook advertising, because that's what we do over at Digital Marketer, is we bring a lot of experts together around a table to bring in the best possible content. So if you're not going to be, so the first thing is take yourself off the hook with your blog as being the person that's got to continuously sit down and write content for your site. And once you do that, you'll start freeing yourself up to do things that you should be doing, like figuring out how to drive more traffic, using the systems that Keith is teaching you, how do I drive traffic out of Facebook? How do I drive traffic off of wherever, organic social, banner ads, things like that. Because when you create stellar, outstanding content and you add in there things like paid media, social advertising, banner ads, things like that to bring people in, it's like throwing gas on a fire. You know, so you've got great, awesome content, and you're forcing it in front of people using social ads or whatever sort of traffic driving methods you're using. So you want to take yourself out of stop being the writer and start being the owner of a media company that's pulling lots of people together so you can figure out the big things. You know, Perry Marshall talks about, you know, doing $10 an hour work, $100 an hour work, $1,000 an hour work. And you want to be started, you know, as a person that owns a blog or a media company, this is a business, and you need to be treating it like a business. So you're figuring out the bigger things like driving traffic. Yeah, Keith, go ahead.
Yep. No, I'm just agreeing 100% with you. So
yeah. So hang on just a second here. Let me. Now, you know, the other big, you know, $1,000 an hour stuff that you'll get freed up to do when you go out and find other people to create content are things like creating and strengthening new offers that you can make to your audience and the people that you're building up on your list. Creating funnels, right? So I'm sure Keith talks about funnels. We talk about funnels nonstop over at Digital Marketer. You know, and especially for when you own a media company, you want to be focusing on creating new lead magnets, and we can talk more about that. You can pop questions in there if you want to talk about lead magnets and what they are, but essentially they are, you know, if you're running a blog with no lead magnets on it, it's kind of it really isn't doing nearly close to what it could be doing. You know, if you would just add in this concept of lead magnets, which is, you know, just a small chunk of value that you're offering in exchange for someone's contact information. It's as simple as that. It's a, you know, you've seen them all the time. They're free reports or free audios, free mind maps, things like that are there in exchange for an opt-in. So
and if
you want to.
Real quick, can I jump in? I just want to jump in
real
quick. I'm going to be talking about this in down the road here in a little bit, and the more you can think about, like if you're starting to bring on content experts like Russ is going to teach here in a second, think about, and this can happen for your existing blog posts that you've written and have written in the past and are going to be writing. Think about how you can create custom lead magnets for custom blog posts. Now this takes more work. But there was a great podcast not too long ago by Conversion Cast with Lead Pages talking about this, and also some other folks. And Digital Marketer does a great job of this too. And I just started recently doing this. I've got a blog post talking about my 9-step process for Facebook success and maximum ROI. And I put the lead magnet, instead of having my normal kind of Facebook checklist lead magnet, is I did a 9-step process mind map as the lead magnet and uses Lead Pages as a lead box. And you know, that's getting 90% of people that click on that are opting in right now. And I can show that at the end if you guys want to see this, but it makes what he's talking about right now even more, a better ability to profit and get more ROI from using things like Facebook and native advertising to amplify all this content. You can get more visitors in there because you start creating custom lead magnets, stuff like that. And it can be, you know, game changing and help you, you know, just put more power behind this stuff. So sorry for the interruption, but something nugget to think about.
Yeah, no, let's have a conversation about it. It's a lot more fun that way for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example, and you know, we can talk more about lead magnets in the Q&A because I'm going to burn through this content pretty fast, and then I'll be happy to take questions about blogs and those kinds of things. But you know, a guy, actually last time I was in Austin with Ryan Dice, he handed me a copy of a book, and that book was Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson.
Yep.
And he said, read this book. He said, you know, and I had told him that I had never read that book. And he said, read this book. This is your copy. I ordered it for you because this is how I run my company. And one of the things that Michael Masterson talks about in that book that is really, you know, it's one of those things. It's fairly obvious. It's fairly common sense, but not common practice. And that is that the only thing you should be worried about, or the number one thing you should be worried about, is selling. You've got to figure out how to sell as a business owner. And you know, if you read that book, he devotes probably, I don't know, 30 pages to this concept that if you're going to start a business, if you're going to own a business, you need customers, you need sales, you need cash flow. And when you're running a blog, a lot of times you can get caught in this rut of, okay, so now I got to get up and write another piece of content. And then, you know, of course, the next day goes by, well, now I got to write another piece of content. Instead of doing that, you really need to stop. Stop right there and say, okay, let's make a plan to start bringing in other people to do this writing for me, so that I can focus on what the business is about, which is selling, which is lead magnets, which is funnels, which is creating offers, which is driving traffic. Those are the big things that, as a business owner, you need to be doing. Blogs don't make money. They are simply a channel, you know, and they are a great channel, and they work very, very well. But you know, content marketing sucks up a ton of time if you get caught down in the weeds doing the content creation part of it. And there's really, not only is there not a need to be doing it, it's actually hurting you that you're creating all of this content, because you're not bringing in, you know, a Russ Henneberry to talk about blogging and a Keith Krantz to talk about what he knows, and you know, bringing in a Adam Kreitman to talk about AdWords, and you're bringing in all this rich content from all of these experts, and that's what content marketing is about when you want to create a real media property. So let's move into, so I just wanted to lead off by saying, take yourself off the hook. You don't need to be creating this content, and you need to be focused on selling.
And before you get in there, folks, I'll put it at the end. Remind me, I've got the links for, you can download that book. I've listened to it on Audible, Ready, Fire, Aim. Michael Masterson is one of the best, I don't know how the book's about going from 0 to 100 million, but he's also one of the best direct response media buyers in the world, might be the best. Yeah. And has built several. So everybody on this call right now, learning from somebody like him is the best thing you could ever do. So I'll put in the link for Amazon and Audible. It's great stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, that book gets into, you know, it gets very, very tactical, actually. So it starts out sort of, you know, more philosophical, and then gets really, really tactical. So great book, Ready, Fire, Aim. So let's get into starting to talk about, let's go out and find some writers, some content creators for you. And the thing that you need to understand, this is the fundamental understanding that you need to have, is that you have two things to trade with somebody that's going to ever create content for you. Unless it's your mother, because she'll do it because she loves you. Or you have friends that you can call in favors, but that is not a way to build a content strategy. You have two things to trade. You have money and you have exposure. And if you don't have exposure, you have one thing to trade, and that's money. So what do I mean by exposure? I essentially mean traffic. So if you've got a high traffic site or blog that's getting, you know, what do I mean by high traffic? You know, a blog post that's getting, you know, when you put up a blog post, you're able to put 2,000-3,000 sets of eyeballs on it minimum. And you know, that's a rule of thumb. I actually just made that up because I was thinking you're probably going to want a number. But you know, if you're able to put up, you know, thousands of sets of eyeballs on a blog post, you can start to trade in exposure. And let me tell you why that this is important. It's important because when you can trade in exposure, you can trade in less money. So it costs you less to run your content strategy when you have more exposure. There's actually just a complete reverse correlation between how much exposure you have to trade and how much money it's going to cost you to run your content strategy. So if you are, and then the other thing that's important about being able to trade in exposure is that creating content becomes easy because people will come to you and ask you if they can publish on your property because they want the exposure. So I'll give you an example. I've written for a lot of different, larger marketing sites like Copyblogger, Social Media Examiner, Convince and Convert, sites like this. It never even crossed my mind to ask to be paid by any of these blogs. It would have been really pretty ridiculous to say, well, can I get, $100, $200 for writing this article, $50, whatever it is, because that's not why I wrote for Copyblogger. I wrote for Copyblogger because I wanted the exposure. I wrote for Social Media Examiner because I wanted the exposure. And the crazy thing is, the craziest part about it is that not only does it get cheaper to run your content strategy, the more exposure you have to trade, but your content will get better because the best people, the best content creators, you can't pay them enough to create content for you. The best content creators do not have really a fee. I mean, of course there's a fee. You could pay them 10 grand, they'll write you an article, sure. But there's no reasonable fee that you can afford to get the best of the best experts to write for you. So I'll give you an example of this. When I was with Salesforce running their content strategy, we landed Tony Robbins, and we got him on the blog. And Tony Robbins did not, the effect that Tony Robbins had on our blog was really, it was unbelievable. I also run analytics, so I'm really into website analytics, and I referred to the post that Robbins did for us as the Tony Robbins effect, because there was an enormous spike in our analytics when Robbins posted for us that we would never get back again, because Tony Robbins is just that big. He's just that big of an expert. And you won't get a Tony Robbins expert, or even several rungs below Tony Robbins, without a lot of exposure. And for the most part, these people cannot be bought. They're not going to publish on a low exposure blog for any amount of money. Okay, so this concept that you need exposure to start reducing your costs is important, and I'll come back around to it at the end of this presentation. What do you think, Keith? Was this making sense?
Making sense. Love it. Yep, for sure.
Okay. So how do we find expert writers? And these are in decreasing order of effectiveness in this man's opinion, in my experience. Okay, these are a decreasing order of effectiveness. So the last one I list here is the least effective way to go out and find expert writers. The most effective way to find expert writers is to poach them. And you poach them from other blogs that are media companies. And so I've got some links here I'm going to open up if they work. I probably guess I have to go into presentation mode to make that link work. Let me see here. So let me just grab that. We'll just roll this way, since I'm afraid if I try to go into full presentation mode, I'm going to screw something up here. Okay, so this site is called Digital Photography School, and it's one of the largest. It gets over 6 million uniques a month. It's a media property owned by Darren Rouse, the guy who's behind ProBlogger, and it's really his larger property. It's his largest property that I'm aware of is Digital Photography School. It's a huge, massive, massive media company, and you will almost never see Darren publish on here. I want you to notice Melinda Smith, Adam Welch, Andrew Gibson. There is There's not even a lot of duplicate writers in here. And this is what you are looking for. You are looking for the big media properties in your space that have existing people that are writing for them already, because this is what you want to become. Let's just say you have a photography blog or a photography business and you want to start up a blog this size. This is where I would go. I'd go to digital photography school, and then I would start reading. And anybody that I find that's good fit for what I'm trying to create, I'm going to track them down, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to try to get them on the phone. And then secondarily, I will if I can't get them on the phone, I'm going to get them through email. And then thirdly, if I can't get them through email, I will get them on LinkedIn or Twitter, or those are the, LinkedIn or Twitter. Again, in decreasing order of effectiveness: phone, email, LinkedIn, Twitter. So if you can't find them on LinkedIn or Twitter, move on. There's plenty of other people, and you got to wonder why somebody's not on LinkedIn or Twitter if they're a blogger. So, but this is the best way to find great expert content creators, because you can see their writing, you can read their writing, and you know that they are interested in creating content for people's blogs. And so what you need to do is you need to go out there and find the digitalphotographyschool.coms of your space, and you need to find the writers and chase them down and contact them. And that's hands down the best way to find expert writers.
Right, so you're finding writers that are writing for other big media companies. You're not going after not necessarily the biggest names around, but people that are willing to write for other media channels.
Right, not at this stage. I mean,
Right.
In the early stages, especially, you're just looking for people to create content that are experts. I'll give you my little spiel on like different levels of experts. There are three different levels of expert, or there are three different levels of content creator. There is the expert. This person's written books. They might do keynote speeches about the topic. There may be a guru. All right, and we're talking everybody from Tony Robbins, who, if I go out and have beers with my friends, everybody at the table is going to know who Tony Robbins is. But if I go out and have beers with my friends, they're not all going to know who Ryan Deiss is. In fact, none of them are going to know who Ryan Deiss is, whereas everybody on this call knows who Ryan Deiss is, and he's a guru. Like he would smack me if he heard me calling him a guru, but you know what I mean. He's a pretty high level expert. And there are experts that are internationally or nationally known, and then there's others that you would only know that they're an expert if you were a follower of a particular topic or niche or market. Like I used to be all into poker. I don't know if you guys remember when poker was so big, and Texas Hold'em and all of that stuff, and everybody was all excited about it
then too.
Yeah, I was a nerd. I was, we all my friends, we'd get together and we'd play poker and stuff. And I could point out poker players on the street that most people wouldn't recognize if they weren't into poker. So those are the top level of content creator. If you can get Ryan Deiss to create content for you, that would be the best situation, right? If you can get Tony Robbins to create content for you, that'd be a fantastic situation. But generally speaking, you're going to go a rung below that, and that is the level that I call practitioner. So a practitioner is somebody like me. No one knows who I am or what my name is, but I know this stuff. Like, I do it every day. I'm in the trenches. I'm building content. I'm doing SEO. I'm working in this stuff. I'm in the trenches, and there's people like this everywhere. And and in every space. Like these people on digital photography school, most of them are just practitioners. You know, they know what they're talking about. Like they shot 500 photos today, you know, and they do it every day of their lives. And this is the lowest level content creator you want to get on any blog, because there's a third level below this. That level is freelance writer. Okay, so there's a lot of people out there that could go out and write this article about masking in Photoshop that don't know anything about Photoshop, because they're various levels of good at writing and researching. And for me, and again, in this guy's opinion, this level of content creator will crush your blog. Like it will crush your content strategy, to have people that merely know how to go out and find out and essentially regurgitate what they've learned into an article. That level of content creator is the kind of content creator that will create a below average or average blog that goes nowhere ever. It just sits and bobs around at a low amount of traffic. So you're looking for somebody like this guy here that wrote this, I'm going to guess, knows Photoshop. I'll say, let's see, 23-year-old Nepal-based self-learned photographer, retoucher, and blogger. He does landscape, fashion photography, and writes. Okay, so, you know, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for, this guy's a young
blogger,
photographer. It's just looking to get some exposure from digital photography school. All right, so yeah, go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, exactly. He's a young, up and coming blogger trying to grow his brand, his personal brand.
Yeah, and he's probably looking for some photography gigs, or he might be selling a little Photoshop product or something like that. But he's trying to get exposure off of digital photography school, all right, and that's why he's willing to create content. Now I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna be right 99.9% of the time, because I've actually written for ProBlogger. They don't pay these guys. They're not paying money for this content. This guy just is trading in exposure. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is to search Google for blogs. So what you're looking for here is, what the difference between these two is that in this case you're just looking for people that are own and operate their own blogs, so at least in this case, at least you know that they can write, because you've read their content. You've read their writing. So if I search photography blogs in Google, and one tip I'll give you is that the biggest photography blogs are going to end up on the first page of Google. You need to go deeper. Because you're going to find the big media properties that you already knew existed, unless you don't know anything about the market, in which case you can do some discovery there too. But you need to dig deep to find people. So let's look through this set of search results here. So like this one looks kind of promising. MelissaJill.com wedding photography blog. Okay, now the first thing I'm always looking for is when's the last time it was updated. So I don't know if that's September 2nd. Let me see here. If it hasn't been updated in years, I just leave.
I'll bet you it is, because it's October 2014 is the calendar there, so it's probably this year, I would guess.
Yeah, and so this looks like a relatively recent post, and you can also see that she's trying to make some money down here. She's got this little ad down here for B&H Photo, which is an e-commerce site for photography. And so this is one I would settle in here, and I would read this, and if I liked it and I thought she was any good, I would come up here to this contact form and I would fill it out, and if I found a phone number, which is here, I would call her first. Because no one calls anybody anymore. So if you want somebody to know you're serious, pick up the phone and call them. So I pick up the phone and call, and I will also, if I get their voicemail, I'll tell them, hey, I found your site. I'm interested in having you create some content. It is a paid position. If you intend to pay, you just go ahead and tell them you're gonna, it's a paid position. It'd be, just some small part-time work, stuff like that. Just trying to see if you're interested. I'm also going to shoot you an email, and then shoot them an email, and then ping her on Twitter too, because here she is over on Twitter, and this girl is doing some stuff. Like, she's moving and she's shaking, and she's going to reply. You're going to get a reply most of the time from somebody like Melissa Jill if you contact her. So the difference here is that she's not publishing on some big property like Digital Photography School. That's not where you found her. She's just taken it upon herself to build her own blog. So you got writing. The key is that you have writing to read. You're able to read the writing and disqualify those that you don't want before you even contact them and go through all of the pain in the butt of going through topics and getting them to submit something to you, and then you look at it and you're like, this isn't what I was looking for. Instead, you just say, well, let me just read their content, and if it's good, then I'll contact them. If it's not, I'll move on. So you're looking for existing content here.
Love it.
Now, a third way, this one works pretty good too, is to search Twitter. So anybody that's in most markets, anybody that is blogging is going to be on Twitter. So I like to use this tool called FollowerWonk for this. So let me pop this in here. Okay, so I will go to followerwonk.com, and I will go into search Twitter bios, and I will type something in there like photography blogger. And all it's going to do is just return, all of these people that are possible writers for me or content creators. And so I'm going to go through these, and I'm going to start with the ones that have the most followers and tweets and stuff, because people that have built-in social networks can bring me traffic, because they're going to tweet out when they create content for me. So, you can see here there's plenty of people to keep you busy searching for writers right here in this one listing for photography blogger, but you can also try photography blog, and that's going to give you slightly different results. And this is another really good method for tracking down content creators quickly. Okay, now the next one is to create a Write For Us page and link to it from your site. If you don't have a high traffic site, this probably won't work really well because no one's on your site to find your Write For Us link. But this, once your site gets going, which we're going to talk about as I close the conversation. Once your site gets going, this page will start to get to be highly, a little bit. This page will start to get traffic on it. People will be looking to write for you. So this is our
And you can
Write
start
For
to
Us
change
page
your
over at Digital
incentives.
Marketer.
Yeah.
What's that?
And pretty soon, so over time, your incentives will start to change from paying people to giving them exposure.
Yeah, from paying people to saying, hey, look, I get 15,000 people on a blog post. And most of the time, they don't even ask you that. They just know that the thing's highly trafficked, because they read it themselves. They're a reader. They are a fan. So I'll go through our Write For Us page real quick and just show you what I do here. Is I just say, hey, you want to write for us? We'd love to have you. And then I tell them we'll give you a bylined article. And at this point at Digital Marketer, we're not paying writers very often. Every once in a while, I still have a paid article, but very few. And I don't want to advertise on my Write For Us page at this stage that we are paying, because we're not. And so here's what we're looking for: 100% original content, lots of screenshots, lots of examples. That's how I like my posts to be. And then you tell them, here are the categories that we publish in. And then I like to tell them and give them examples of posts that they can go check out and say, okay, that's the level of content or the type of content that they're looking for. And depending on where you are in the stage of getting writers, you can be more and more like, you start out by begging for content, and by the end you are telling people, look, you're going to have some serious marketing chops or photography chops or vegan recipe chops or whatever your article is about to publish on this site. You've got to know what you're talking about, or you got to really, and so you'll change your Write For Us page as your blog evolves to, communicate that and keep people from submitting articles if they don't have what it takes to get on there in the first place. So the way I do that is I ask for first name, last name, and email, but then I tell them I want you to enter links to 3 articles you have written that are similar to the article you would write for Digital Marketer. And this knocks out, I bet you 95% of the people that visit this page that have never written anything, or they don't want to take the time to look and pull it all together and look at our blog and so forth. So I ask for these URLs to filter people, and if you don't want to filter people, if you're still at the, hey, I'm kind of just looking for content, anything at this stage, I'd love to get any submissions at all, then take this part out. But I like to have a form on here that somebody can submit through here. Now the 5th most effective way to get good content is to chase down people that are commenting on your site. So if you get somebody that leaves a really interesting comment, click through and figure out who they are and see if they might be a good writer, because they obviously are reading your stuff, they're interested in your stuff, they might be a good writer. And then the last one is outsourcing sites. Elance, Fiverr, Odesk. I have not had good luck on these sites, mainly because I can't see any content. So everybody that I get submissions from, I get a lot of, you don't want to get 50 articles a week that you have to leaf through to figure out what's any good. You want to get to where you have a group of writers that are good, that are consistently creating content for you, and this is just not the way to do it in my experience. Okay. Any thoughts about that, Keith? Or
No, just I guess we can hit on this in some of the Q&A too. Just just some of the people are probably wondering, like, how much to pay, if they're going to pay for somebody, and if how much of a level of an expert should they go after if they're kind of brand new, or I know it's those are tough questions, but we can kind of hit on them towards when we do the Q&A a little bit too.
Cool. All right. So here are 4 other ways to create awesome content that you'll be surprised at the level of expert that you can get when you do these kinds of articles. Okay, so the first one is called the crowdsourced article. Okay, so let me show you an example. Okay, so this one is one that I created over at Salesforce, and everybody in this article is a keynote speaker or author level expert. Okay, so it was called How 10 Winning Salespeople Spend 15 Minutes Before a Sales Call. And all it is, you've seen these around the web, and they're easy to pull together, and you'd be surprised at the level of expert you can get involved in these because they have minimal effort. So you feed them a softball question like, hey, if you had 15 minutes to spend before a sales call, these are all authors in the selling space. How would you spend that 15 minutes? Well, each one of them just gave me a couple of paragraphs. You see? and it pulls together into this really, really rich content that is easy to do as long as you can, you are going to pull together, and you want to do these in batches. So you ask them 4 questions, or 6 questions, or 8 questions, and ask them to give you a paragraph or 2 response to each one, and then you end up with 4, 6, or 8 blog posts, all from a bunch of experts. Now, what do you think? This guy's name's Anthony Anarino. What do you think Anthony did when we published this? He tweeted it. He put it up on Facebook. He put it up on LinkedIn. Same with Mark. Same with Jim Keenan. All these guys these are experts, and they have built-in exposure to send to my blog, and I pulled them all together into one big, rich post. Now, here's the trick. The trick is you go out and you get the biggest expert you possibly can. You gotta find one expert that you're able to get, and the rest of them will jump in line. So when I got the first guy I got was this guy, Mark Hunter, and then I emailed Anthony and I said, hey, Mark Hunter's in on this. Do you want to get in on this? And he's like, well, heck yeah, if Mark's doing it, I'm in. Because all these guys know each other. All these experts run around together. Yep. But don't forget, you don't have to go up and get the biggest of the big. I was working for Salesforce at the time. They're a multi-billion-dollar company that has tremendous exposure to offer. But you don't have to do that. You can go out and get a lot of practitioners to answer these questions and pull them together and create a rich post that you did not have to write. You didn't write it. You let them all write it. And you give them a minimum way to get involved by just giving them an easy softball question. Okay. Now, the other one is interview someone. I'm sure you understand what that means, but it's so few people. You would be surprised at the level of expert you can get when you just say to them, hey man, I want to interview you. It's a totally different ask than to ask them, hey, I want you to write something for me. Instead you say, hey, I want to interview you. That flips everything on its head, doesn't it? It activates their ego, and everybody likes to talk about the stuff that they like. And the last thing I'll say about interviewing is that the easiest way to get an expert that has very little time to give you an interview is audio. Don't do text, don't do video, like on a Google Hangout or something like that. I mean, you can try it, and if they're willing to do it, that's fine. But audio is the easiest way to pull content from an expert because they don't have to comb their hair. All they got to do is pick up the phone and talk. And no one gets talker's block. People get writer's block. People have to sit down and write something. They hate that, when it's not for them. So you can pull a lot of great content and get a surprising level of expert no matter what level size your blog is by asking them to do an audio interview. You can interview yourself. Write out the questions, ask someone to interview you, and then you hire your freelance writer level person to pull that together into some content because they have the interview with you. And then the last one, I'll show you this. We do this over at one of our blogs called, we do it on a lot of blogs that we own at Digital Marketer, but this one does a lot. And this is just a simple curation play where, and you can have a freelance writer pull stuff like this together for you. 35 ways. So DIY Ready is one of our blog properties. It's doing really, really well. And 35 ways to transform your old furniture. This is literally the first article I clicked on. And all it is just a bunch of DIY projects pulled together into one article. Some of them are ours, the projects that they've done over at DIY Ready, but most of them, or a lot of them, are just curated. You know, like this one's from Paper Snitch blog, but you're pulling all Paper and Stitch. You know, so you're pulling all this content together and aggregating it together. And you can hire a lower than practitioner level expert to do that kind of content for you, because they don't have to, they're not pretending that they know about something that they don't know something about.
So I got a quick question on that for it might be, so if someone's going to curate an article like that and say take you know, some content from like 5 different pieces, other articles, other experts, what's the best way to go about that so they don't have to deal with issues as far as the other author being ticked off or duplicate content or anything like that?
Well, definitely, you know, definitely don't do duplicate. Don't duplicate.
Yeah.
Don't just go over there and copy their stuff. You know, but you can see what we did over here at
Summarize
at
section.
DIY Ready was we summarized it. We took images and things like that, and we linked. And
Yep.
you know, we weren't being jerks about it. We linked to them.
Yep.
And you know, linking out to other people is great. You know, people in the old days you say, well, you don't link out to anybody. It loses your SEO juice. You know, and it's like, whatever, man. Just be cool and link to people. You know,
Exactly.
when you mention their stuff, link to people. But other ways of curating content are to just go out on YouTube and pull. You know, so let's just say, you know, we go out on YouTube and we pull. You know, we want to do DI. You know, let's say build furniture. You know, so there's going to be tons of content on everything in YouTube, and almost all of it's embeddable content. You know, you pull it all together into one post, and you either do it yourself, or you hire a journalist type person, a freelance writer type person, to summarize all of those underneath the video. So you know, but you're pulling together some really rich, outstanding content into one place, and you know, you would think that DIY Ready, if you look at DIY Ready launched about, I think, 8 months ago now, and it's already up to about 150,000 uniques a month, and it's all SEO stuff. It's all SEO, and it's if you go in here and study what we're doing over here, and there's a lot of Pinterest traffic on the site too, actually, but we do a lot of Pinterest traffic on the site. One of the ways we're doing that, we found, was, you see how this image has text at the top of it? That was a big time game changer for us over on Pinterest. Was to, instead of just having a picture of guacamole, we had a description of what it was, and that when this stuff gets pinned, it gets click-throughs a lot because it actually describes that there's a recipe there.
Right.
You know, if you click. So, you know, I think we had some cheap templates built, and we just lay these images in there, and we've got these fancy, you know, this fancy font that we change, and we, you know, for this site, big bold images make a lot of sense. But I bet you this is curated too. It's very, 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 very likely that this is just a curated post that we put together. And I'll give you one more thing that we're doing over here, if we've got a second, is that we'll take something off of YouTube. So this might be guacamole recipe. And we'll take still shots out of these videos. And we'll run the video, and then we'll take a bunch of screen grab still shots out of here, and then build out a text post like this. And then, of course, we link back. You know, we link back to it.
Right.
On the post. But this is always make content creation a lot easier for you. Now, the last thing I was going to talk about is I told you I was going to link back to this concept of money and exposure. How much do you need to pay somebody to write for your site? Well, the answer is
There is no answer to that. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. What market are you in? What kind of content do you need? And it's a supply and demand thing. If you need content about, rocket centrifuges or something like that, and there's only like 75 people on the planet that could even create that content, it's going to be expensive or impossible to get the content from anybody else. But if you're in the food space or the health space or the photography space, or if you're in the marketing and business space, there are lots and lots and lots of content creators out there to pick from, and so the price goes down. That does not mean you should pay less for content. What I will tell you is, this is something that I learned when I was at Crazy Egg, is that you need to over-invest in your content if you ever want to get to where you're not investing in your content. So you need to over-invest, pay more than everybody else, get the best content creators you can, and over-invest to build up the amount of exposure that you have to trade, so that at some point you won't have to pay anything. How long does that take? It takes about 6 months if you do it right. If you start from the beginning and you say, I am going to build a new blog, I'm going to get the best of the best content writers, I'm going to pay them more than anybody else, I'm going to interview experts, I'm going to pull crowdsourced posts together, I'm going to overinvest in the front end, because on the back end, eventually I'm going to have a blog that runs itself. So many people are going to want to be on it because I built the traffic up. And the stuff that Keith teaches you about putting traffic and eyeballs onto things is the other part of this. You can't just create great stuff. You have to be able to promote it and get eyeballs on it to throw gas on that fire and create the amount of exposure that you're going to need, so that eventually you don't need to pay writers at all. They are just coming to you, and your job on that blog gets a heck of a lot easier. So I'll end it with that, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I'll end it up there. Oh, and you can find in ballpark what people are paying other people, writers, at ProBloggers Job Board. You can put out a request on Craigslist. You can go to outsourcing sites like Elance and stuff like that. I don't recommend hiring people off of these sites, but I like to put out an ad on ProBloggers Job Board and just see what I get and talk to these people. And occasionally you'll find a good writer too, but you want to just see what they're asking for.
Right.
But you can also go on ProBloggers Job Board and see what other people are paying, because some people will tell you what they're paying. What they're paying, and then, in my opinion, you go higher than that. You go higher than the average in the norm.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. So, and that's for most people on this, except for your clients, stuff like that. Some of you guys are in other niches, but ProBlogger Job Board could be a great a place where I'm definitely going to check that out right away. So,
hey, I see you have Graham English on this call. I did not know that I was going to have Graham English on this call. I'm not sure I would have done this call if I didn't know Graham was going to be on here.
I should have told you right off the bat, huh? We probably could have canceled it.
I love that guy. He's one of the most, honestly, he's one of the most valuable digital marketer members that we have. So good to see you over here too, Graham.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. He's actually, we've had some live webinars talking about bidding and stuff, and he's hopped on, and we've unmuted him and gave just incredible content. So, yeah, so pretty funny. Let's see here, a couple questions. Okay, one is just a quick one here. Ray was asking, for transcribing, should it be a writer level person? Yeah, you can. You can. So when I arrived at Salesforce, we had 6 a position that was called brand journalists, and what these folks were, they were very good writers and researchers,
And the thing that we were doing on blogs.salesforce.com, now this site over at blogs.salesforce.com was pitiful. The content was terrible, and they weren't giving it any attention at all. Salesforce does other things. They do other things very, very well besides blogging. And they brought us in to fix this blog, and the first thing we did was we took the brand journalists. What they were doing was having brand journalists write articles about how to sell. And the first question I said was, does any of you guys know anything about selling beyond like how to set up a lemonade stand when you were a kid? Like I am not qualified to write articles about about the sales process. It's just not my expertise. And so what we did was we flipped their job, and what we did was instead we said, okay, brand journalist A, you cover Jeffrey Gitomer, Mark Hunter, and Anthony Iannarino. I want you on every webinar they do. I want you to read their blogs. I want you to read their books. If they go to the bathroom, I want you to tell me what kind of toilet paper they're using. And we want you to cover these experts. And that's what a journalist is trained to do, not write articles about selling and try to pretend they know stuff about selling. Instead, go on there and listen to Jeffrey Gitomer do a webinar and then recap it on the Salesforce blog. That's good content. And so if you can use writers, it's just don't try to make a writer write about stuff they don't know anything about. It almost always never works, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, totally.
As Ryan always says, it only always fails. It only always messes up.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a pretty good question. A little bit off topic, but it's a good question. Common question. Do you recommend that a blog be built around a personality, like a person, or around a company? I guess it's not really off topic, but yeah, around a company or a personality.
I mean, it doesn't. If you have a blog right now that is built around a person or a personality, that's fine. It's okay. But the type of blogging that I would ask you to do or think about doing is to build properties that, I mean, you might have a property that, think about Steve Forbes. It's called Forbes, but it's really not Steve Forbes. It's all of these other people around that they've pulled together into this media property. I prefer that it not be, a personal brand. Like look at what Brian Clark, if you know Copyblogger and you've been watching him for a while, look at what Brian Clark has done over at Copyblogger. He used to have a Twitter handle that he was Copyblogger. And that's because when he started out, he wrote all the stuff on there. Now you'd almost never see Brian on Copyblogger because he's trying to distance himself from being Copyblogger. He's Brian Clark. He's the owner of a media company called Copyblogger. And that's what I'm advocating that you do if you want to build blogs that generate sales. And because you don't need to be in there dealing with the actual content. You want the content to be good. You don't want to be the person that's creating it all the time because you need to be focused on making sales. So I am partial to building blogs that do not have a central figure. At Crazy Egg, when I left, I turned the blog over to Catherine Aragon, and she started managing it. And it wasn't built around Neil Patel either. It's a property that feels more like a media property than it does, just somebody's a blog that's somebody's personal brand or personal site.
Right. Even, for example, Neil Patel's, his personal blog really is QuickSprout.
Right.
But it's QuickSprout. It's not neilpatel.com because he wants to build a long-term media channel. that he does not depend on his name and his face.
Yep.
So if you've already got a personal blog and it's your name and it's already gaining traction, that's kind of a unique situation. I'd probably recommend continuing on with that. The most important thing is building that audience, but you could always kind of slowly, once it's big enough, you could maybe start another channel. But there's definitely I've got a client of mine. It's a high profile name, and they do a lot of direct response, driving traffic, and I've been pushing them for, oh gosh, it's like 2 years now to get this blog up and running and start doing things like, Digital Marketer has really done a lot of over the last, 8 months or so, really, with the where you guys have blown up the blog. But they're in a similar situation, and originally it was going to be the name, and he's like, we don't want it to be the name because we want to be able to, retire sometime, you know what I mean? Kind of step away. And so they wanted to make it the topic. And so they kept going back and forth, and they couldn't decide on what to name it, if it was going to be the person, and they decided that it was going to not be the name. It's going to be more the topic, but they're in like 3 different topics. So anyway, sometimes everybody struggles with it and wanting everything to be perfect. And that was kind of their issue too. And it has been, but I basically am in agreement with Russ here. So let's see here. Okay, here's another question. I think I know your answer, but what is your opinion of PLR content to help fill the gaps when you're just starting out? And just in case you don't know what PLR means, PLR stands for private label rights. It means you're taking something that somebody's like created an article or a basic PDF or course, and they've given you the rights to put it under your name and be the author of it. But what's your opinion on that one?
You know my opinion on it. I don't advocate for that. I just haven't, don't think that I'm some kumbaya content marketing, let's just all create great stuff. And I'm one of the reasons, one of the differences between me and some other content marketers would be that I'm very much interested in how content can drive sales and revenue. So, if I thought PLR was a good way to drive sales and revenue, I have nothing. I'm not against it just because I'm against it. I'm against it because I don't think it works. At this stage in the game, with the web has evolved to this stage where it's time to start creating some value and creating something original and unique and something worth visiting. And the crazy thing is that just like a lot of things, exercise, eating right, all these things that are hard to do on the front end because they don't show results fast enough. You did 10 push-ups and you look at your muscles in the mirror. That's the same thing with content marketing and blogging, and it's, if you can push through that on the front end and really hustle, you can get a blog going. I mean, the thing is that yes, there is, people always call, and there's hundreds of thousands of blogs started every day, millions of blog posts published every day, and the fact is that people say there's no need for more content. It's like, no, there isn't any need for any content. There's definitely a need for good stuff because there's very little good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Everybody crowds around the very few sites that have good stuff. It's still wide open out there because there's so many people just trying to shortcut the system.
And what we're doing is, what our plan is over here the next like 90 days when it comes to bringing people on, as more of an incentive for them, maybe so we don't have to pay as much, is telling them that we're going to drive traffic to their posts from Facebook, from other, media channels. If they want to, now a lot of guys won't understand this, especially if you're in a different market like photography or something, but we're going to let them put their like retargeting pixel or put their own website custom audience on it so they can build their their own, and if they want to retarget people into one of their offers, then they can. But that way, the first time somebody saw them, that was positioned as an authority from our site. So we're going to let people kind of do those types of things so they can really take advantage of it. But the other thing is, like, I'll take the let's see here. I'll take the screen back for a second here. Here's an example of a blog that I recently did, and it's a 9-step Facebook process. And I talked about this at the beginning, but if we run ads to this, it's a blog post, right? They don't have to opt in to read it. But guess what? I added a little lead magnet here. Click here to download the 9-step mind map. So they click here, and this is a lead page's lead box where they can download this. And then after they do, you can have another step after they download that. Guess what happens? They get taken to a live webinar or an opt-in. Right now, I was doing that, and then I'm not doing that webinar right now, which I actually need to change this one. I thought the date was actually changed, but the point is you can not only do this for your own content, but you can do this for other people's content. So if I have somebody write a great article, right, and they put this great article together, and we're brand new, right, we don't have a lot of traffic coming, well, I can add my own custom lead magnet. It doesn't have to be the mind map. It could be it could be the transcript, that somebody does for $5 or $10 on your team. Or it could be, depending on what it is, right? You can do a quick, little summary, but they can download this, and then you can have another call to action on the next page. So you can now have some monetization. Of course, you've got retargeting and all those types of things too, but you can add more systems to be able to monetize this stuff when you're just starting out. So think about that. And just because you didn't write the article doesn't mean you can't add your own calls to action on there. So something that we're going to be doing is with people that are going to be guest posting. But like I said, if they do an article here, they can place their website custom audience pixel on there. So guess what? If they can now run retargeting ads into their own funnel, the people that have visited my site. Okay, that's a huge advantage. Now, obviously, like I said, a lot of people, if they don't understand retargeting, that's not going to be the best benefit for them unless you really clearly explain it. But
well, but it's a good point in general, is how else can you get more exposure for someone that would be creating content? Or can you do webinars? Can you create an ebook and blast that out to your list? I mean, how, if you sweeten the exposure deal for the content creator, you can pay them less or nothing. But like, so at Salesforce, again, one of the things that I did with those 10 sales experts was I got them speaking gigs at Dreamforce, which is 300,000 people at Dreamforce in San Francisco. They sell out the whole city, and these guys, they jumped right at that. And then I got them opportunities to do webinars with our customers, and you're not as big as Salesforce, but how else can you get them exposure? What other benefits do you have to bring to the table? And this is a really interesting, creative way here, Keith, to incentivize people. I might toss this out to Ryan and Rich and see what they think about it. But you're looking for creative ways to add exposure or benefit to the content creator so you can reduce the amount of cost.
Yep, and this is what we're doing for people that are on our certification program. There's only 21 people in it, but if they get an article, if they create a piece of article I put it on my site, or I put it on perrymarshall.com site, then they also get to put their custom. They're all Facebook advertisers, so their goal is to get clients, but they can put their own website custom audience or perfect audience pixel on there, so we because when you're trying to get clients these days, if you want to charge a lot of money, or if you want to go away from trying to sell yourself into where they're just wanting to hire you, that's the best way to do it. And that's what I found. There's no other better way than for someone to see an article that you wrote or a video on somebody else's site, even if they don't know that site, just by seeing your stuff on somebody else's site first, and then the second time they see you, the second connection, you're just positioned in such a different way. It's absolutely game changing. So the more ways you can try to kind of engineer a process to kind of increase your authority faster, even if you don't have it quite yet. That's what we're trying to do here. So always be thinking that way. And how you can do that for your writers. So let's see here. Yeah, Mark Ford. Art said he's a huge fan of Mark Ford, which is not Mark, but Michael Masterson's real name is Mark Ford. His pen name is Michael Masterson. So pretty cool there. So I put those links just now in the chat, by the way, the Ready, Fire, Aim, Audible, and Amazon link.
Yeah, check that book out. It's great.
So
really, really good read.
But yeah, I mean, if I think, unless you've got any other things you want to touch on, I think we've already went over a little bit on the time, so we need to wrap it up. But
no, this was fun, man. This was a great time. We'll have to get you and Ralph over on a DM webinar again
Sure.
soon to talk some more Facebook stuff.
For sure. Cool. So, all right. Well, Russ, I appreciate it big time for coming on, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon, and I guess have a great weekend. And like I said, I appreciate it. And we'll for those of you guys, we will have a recording of this. We'll send it out to you too. So don't worry.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.